Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome to Uncivil Law for our latest edition of FBI Tea Hour, where we document the crimes and offenses of the people who stormed the Capitol. Today's edition comes courtesy of John Earle Sullivan, and we're going to learn about the complaint against Mr. Sullivan and some of the things that he has allegedly done. We see that he's currently facing 3 charges: civil disorder, restricted building or grounds, or violent entry or disorderly conduct. What evidence do we have to suggest Mr. Sullivan may have done these things? Let's find out. Ooh. All right, so we skip the preliminaries. Ooh. Oh yeah, we're getting into some good stuff here. Okay, so we skip the preliminaries, the background about the event, blah blah blah, all that stuff, right? Skip all the stuff and we get to the juicy part. Mr. Sullivan, who was born in 1994, is a resident of the state of Utah. For those of you who had Utah Man in your bingo card, please check your square. Based on publicly available information and information provided by Mr. Sullivan in an interview, talking to the police, on January the 7th, 2021, described further below, Sullivan is the leader of an organization called Insurgents USA, through which he organized protests. Good. On July the 30th of 2020, Sullivan was charged with rioting and criminal mischief by local law enforcement authorities in Provo, Utah, based on his activities around the June 30th, 2020 protest in which a civilian was shot and injured. This case is still pending, showing some propensity, perhaps, that will go to his likelihood for bail and so forth. The United States obtained video of Sullivan posted on YouTube. Yeah, I tell you what, man, this social media has been by far and away the greatest thing for law enforcement in the history of time. Between Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and all the social messaging tools, the FBI gets so much evidence of so many things, big and small. It's amazing what people post online, especially themselves, on their own page. Anyways, the video which was posted on YouTube, in which, while attending a protest in Washington, D.C., Sullivan can be seen telling the crowd over a microphone, "We're about to burn this shit down. We got a rimp Trump out of office. Effing pull him out of that shit. We ain't waiting till the next election. We're about to go get the MF." Sullivan can then be seen leading a chant of, "It's time for a revolution." Ooh, spicy words. Perhaps suggesting some intent. Ooh, spicy stuff. Good times. All right, so that was, yeah. Okay. On January the 7th of 2021, Sullivan participated in a voluntary interview with the FBI in Washington, D.C. "Please come and talk to us." Okay. Yeah. And then he puts a footnote here that he understands that the prior conduct doesn't provide probable cause for this, but he provides it as reflective of intent and MO, which is perfectly proper, right? So you can't use it to form probable cause, but you can use it to rebut affirmative defenses. So he's projecting into the future, basically, with that statement. So he's basically saying at this point, I'm not using it for probable cause. I'm projecting into the future. Because one of the things the defendant might say is, "I didn't mean to do it." And then it's like, yeah, here's some things that thinks you maybe mean to do it. And also might go to bail and his dangerousness and so forth and so on. But it doesn't form probable cause in and of itself. Fair. So our friend over here, who is in trouble with the police already, decided it'd be a good idea to talk to the FBI. Sullivan identified himself to the agent and began providing identifying information, including his date of birth, address, social media identifiers, and phone numbers. "Here's everything you need to know about me. Here's when I was born. Here's where I live. Here's also my social media accounts. Here's my phone numbers. I'd love to tell you all about it." In the interview with the FBI, Sullivan stated that he was in Washington, D.C. to attend and film Stop the Steal, march on January the 6th of 2021. Sullivan claimed to be an activist and journalist that filmed protests and riot, but he admitted he didn't have press credentials, which maybe, that would only really apply to inside the Senate chambers, but whatever. We don't have to really get that far. Yeah, anyway, so he claims he's a journalist. Let's see if that holds water. Sullivan also stated that he was at the Capitol on January 6, 2021, when scores of individuals entered it. Sullivan stated that he was wearing a ballistic vest and a gas mask while there. Truly, just a journalist. Truly just a journalist, nothing more. He showed the agent the ballistic vest. Please take a look at it. Here it is. Let me show it to you. Do you like my ballistic vest? Sullivan stated that he followed the crowd as the crowd pushed past the Capitol Police and followed the crowd into the Capitol. I didn't really intend to do this. I was just swept up in the crowd. Okay. All right. Sullivan further stated that he'd been present at a shooting of a woman within the U.S. Capitol by a U.S. Capitol police officer, and he had filmed the incident. During the interview, Sullivan showed the interviewing agent the footage he had taken, which Sullivan stated he had uploaded to the internet. The footage showed the area immediately outside the speaker's lobby within the U.S. Capitol. I know from public source information, the public speaker's lobby is a hallway from which one can enter into the chamber of the U.S. House of Representatives. That would be where it is located, yes. The speaker's lobby is set off from the rest of the Capitol building by doors with a glass window. The footage that Sullivan showed the interviewing agent included footage of individuals breaking out of the glass from windows into doors leading into the speaker's lobby, then a gun being discharged by a U.S. Capitol police officer within the speaker's lobby, and a woman falling back from the crowd from a position of climbing through the opening in one of the broken windows with a gunshot wound. The woman would later be identified as victim number 1. And, this is, by the way, this is not an insult to her, by the way, referring her to victim number 1. This is just FBI practice and U.S. attorney practice. So they don't refer to people that are not indicted by name. So this is not meant as an insult. This is just how they do it universally. If they're not indicted or not, they don't mention them by name. So they know who she is, but it's just practice. The idea is that you don't want to drag them through. You don't want to drag people that are not indicted through a court proceeding. So before anyone panics that they're like ignoring this woman's name, this is just standard MO for the U.S. attorney. That's how they always do it. So don't panic. Anyways. Sullivan also voluntarily provided 2 phone numbers and multiple social media accounts and identifiers to special agents, including a YouTube user account named Jaden X. Maybe we should go look and see if his YouTube account is still up. That might be fun. At the conclusion of the interview, Sullivan stated he was willing to voluntarily provide a copy of all the footage he recorded within U.S. Capitol law enforcement. How thoughtful. Let me provide you all the video that shows I was there and shows you my participation in the thing. I'd love to show you all the things, FBI officer. Great. On January the 9th of 2021, a task officer within the FBI made contact with Sullivan at one of the phone numbers Sullivan had provided during his January 7th interview to follow up on his offer to provide his footage. We'd like to follow up on that request. Sullivan told the task officer the video he took within and around the U.S. Capitol was in an iCloud account. The same day, Sullivan sent a link to law enforcement from a Google Photos account under the name John Sullivan with approximately 50-minute video. I have reviewed the video. Another guy who's thoughtfully emailed the FBI with a link to the video. Not this time on YouTube. Even worse. Under his own Google Photos account. Even worse. Yeah. Good. That's great. That's great. The video footage records approaching, entering, and moving throughout the United States Capitol on January 6th of 2021. Although the video rarely shows Sullivan, at points during it, Sullivan narrates it. How thoughtful. He's saying what he sees. He's narrating it as he moves and can be heard speaking to other individuals and law enforcement officers. I recognize Sullivan's voice in the video based on the January 11th, 2021 interview. I recognize the same voice because I've spoken to him before. I conducted with Sullivan at his residence, as described further below. In addition, at one point the camera pans to an individual wearing a tactical vest and holding a gas mask. As seen in the screenshot below, those match Sullivan showed me in the interview. So maybe it's this guy with the gas mask and the ballistic one. Because how do I recognize the gas mask and the ballistic vest? How do I recognize that? Sullivan himself showed me the real thing. That would be how I recognize them. He showed them to me. Would you like to take a look at my gas mask? Would you like to take a look at my ballistic vest? I think I've seen those before. Yeah, and further described. And now we have pictures of his stuff, so we can judge his tactical rating. What are we thinking, guys? Are we thinking he's tactical? I don't know. I'm not really feeling it. He needs to work harder, man. Among other things, the other things, video Sullivan recorded and provided to law enforcement includes the following. We have more things to share with you. Sullivan filming at the front of the crowd as they push through the police barriers on the west side of the Capitol. At the first moment the crowd breaks through, Sullivan can be heard saying they're going in. The video follows the crowd as they move towards the Capitol building where Sullivan captured additional scenes of individuals breaking through the police barriers. Here is the shot that I took of this happening. After the crowd broke through the last pass barrier, and as Sullivan and others approached the building, to approach the building, Sullivan can be heard saying in the video, saying at various points, "There are so many people. Let's go. This shit is ours. F yes. We accomplished this shit. We did together. F yeah. We're all part of the history, and let's burn this shit down." These do not strike me, personally, and maybe they are different to your ear, as the juror in our particular intrigue here. But these words do not strike me as the mere words of a journalist who's just there to observe and document the day. This sounds suspiciously more akin to a person who is rioting, wanting to participate in the riot and is fomenting the rioting. Just my ear. Doesn't strike me as particularly journalistic. Maybe not journalism. Could be. Also, the gas mask and the ballistic vest is also kind of a clue. Yeah. Later, Sullivan video includes footage of individuals climbing a wall to reach a plaza just outside the Capitol building entrance, as seen in the screenshot below. As individuals are climbing the wall, Sullivan can be heard saying, "You guys are effing savage, let's go." Incidentally, if you're wondering what incitement looks like legally, this would be it. This would be incitement. Yeah, if you wonder what incitement looks like legally, this is what incitement looks like legally. You go. Let's go. Let's do it right now. Imminent, lawless action. You're encouraging people to break the law in a way that's about to imminently happen. This is Brandenburg. This is incitement. Yeah. That would be, yeah. It's happening right now. Yeah. And we have some more photos of our time. The FBI loves the slideshows, man. They do love the slideshows. It's great. At one point, Sullivan can be heard telling one of the individuals climbing the wall to give Sullivan his hand, as individuals in the crowd are calling people to help up the wall. How thoughtful. He's helping people climb the wall. That would make him an accessory. The video records Sullivan's entrance into the Capitol building through a broken window. Maybe that's not the proper entrance for the building. Maybe that's trespass. Maybe that's breaking and entering. Sullivan, once inside the Capitol building, who is there just as a pure journalist, remind you, roamed the building with other individuals who had unlawfully entered. During one of the interactions with others, Sullivan can be heard in the video saying, "We gotta get this shit burned." At other times he's walking through the Capitol, Sullivan can be heard saying, among other things, "It's our house, MFers, and we are getting this shit." The FBI has in its arrest pleading, or I don't know what the right word for arrest warrant application, I guess would be the formal way of putting it. The FBI in its arrest warrant application has suggested that Mr. Sullivan over here might be an organizer of protests and might engage in protests as a bit of a hobby and recreation. This does seem to be somewhat consistent with what we've learned about Mr. Sullivan's past and also other pending charges relating to his activities. Maybe not just a passive journalist. Maybe he's actually something else. There are some clues that might suggest that to a reasonable person. Yeah. Eladian has it right. Let's do this, Leroy Jenkins. Basically, that's where we're at. Yeah. Can't he say, well, security held the door open, so I thought it was okay? If he went through the door, maybe, but he went through the window, which is distinctly different from the door. In addition, several times during the video, Sullivan encounters law enforcement officers who are trying to prevent further advancement. Yeah, the law enforcement would like you to stop doing this now. In at least 2 encounters, Sullivan can be heard on video arguing with the officers, telling them to stand down so they don't get hurt. Yeah, that's good. Among other things, Sullivan can be heard telling officers, "You're putting yourself in harm's way." That's one of the things that police officers tend to do, yes. The people have spoken. Yes, they did, just not the way you wanted. And there are too many people, you gotta stand down. The people out there that tried to do that shit, they got hurt. I saw, I'm caring about you. Okay, all right. At one point in the video, Sullivan enters an office within the U.S. Capitol, seen in the screenshot below. Once inside the office, Sullivan approaches the window, also seen in the screenshot, and says, "We did this shit. We took this shit." Yeah, yeah. Here is a photo of him. I assume that's him at the window. Yeah, so that's him at the window. He's looking out the window upon the land he has conquered. Looking out onto the courtyard from the window with a wistful reverence for his many achievements. How dramatic. He's also have some kind of blanket or something, which looks like tactical too. AF or something. I think it was on his bag. Some sort of tactical flag or some stuff. Yeah. While at the window, a knocking noise is heard off screen. The camera then pans to show more of the window, and a broken pane that can be seen that was not broken on the approach to the window. Sullivan can then be heard saying, "I broke it. My bad, my apologies. They already broke a window, so you know, I didn't hit it that hard. No one got that on camera. Except for you." And how did the FBI get this footage? You send it to them in a link. You send it to the FBI from your Google Photo Drive. That would be how the FBI got it. You send it to them yourself. Here's a link to it. It's in my Google Photo Drive. Enjoy the video. No one got the broken window thing on video. Yeah, that's good. That's good work there. Yeah. At another point in the video, Sullivan joins a crowd trying to open doors to another part of the U.S. Capitol, which are guarded by law enforcement officers as seen in the screenshot below. Sullivan can be heard on the video telling other individuals in the crowd there's officers at the door. Less than 2 minutes later, while officers are still at the doors and as others yell to break glass windows in them with various objects, Sullivan can be heard saying, "Hey guys, I have a knife. Let me up." Well, I didn't see it mentioned here, but that means that we can expect a charge under 18 U.S.C. 930 for possession of a knife in a federal building. So, I see one additional charge that's coming in the near future from a mile away. I have a knife. And you also had it while you were intending to do crimes with it. 5 years. Just for having the knife. With the intent to do crimes with it, 5 years. Good luck with that. Yeah. Also, that means we can now charge you with any offense. It now becomes an armed version of that offense. So if we were going to charge you with burglary before, now we can charge you with armed burglary. If we were going to charge you with assault, we can charge you with assault with a deadly weapon because you had it on you. That legally qualifies as assault as a deadly weapon, incidentally. How wonderful. So thanks for that little tidbit. Everything now becomes the assault with a deadly weapon version of the crime otherwise. Less than 2 minutes, yeah. Sullivan, however, does not ever make it to the doors. And that's very sad. He's not going to make it to the doors anytime in the near future either. Eventually, individuals in the crowd outside the doors announce that officers are leaving and giving us the building. As the crowd begins to part so the officers can leave, Sullivan can be heard yelling, "Haul that MFer out this bitch." That might be perceivable by someone as interference with official governmental operations. I think it's possible. You know. At another time in the video, Sullivan is walking down the hallway in the U.S. Capitol with a large group of people. Sullivan pans the closed door and can be heard saying, "Why don't we go in there?" After someone hits the door, Sullivan can be heard saying, "That's what I'm saying, break that shit." That's what incitement looks like, by the way. Further down the hall, Sullivan can be heard saying, "It would be fire if someone had revolutionary music and shit." He'd like to change the ambiance of the riot. He really thinks, what does qualify as a revolutionary music, incidentally? Is it like death metal, or are we going like old school, like flute playing shit for 1776? Just incidentally curious, which one of those does he have in mind? Some sort of death metal thing, or is he thinking like flute playing 1776 French Revolution kind of stuff? Just curious. Thank you for the super chats, by the way. Acknowledge it. Yeah. Barney gave me 25 Croatian krona. Said, "May I have another, sir?" You may. And $5 from Shopping My Lady, who said the whole scene looked like an episode of The Walking Dead. It did a little bit, that's right. Yes, very good. Thank you for the 2 super chats. In one video, once Sullivan reached the speaker's lobby, where the victim 1 was eventually shot. Sullivan can be heard telling one of the law enforcement officers guarding the doors, as seen in the screenshot below, "We want you to go home. I'm recording. And there's so many people, and they're going to push their way up here. Bro, I've seen people get out there hurt. I don't want to see you hurt." $5 from Tectreon, who says, "Unfortunately for guys like this, the U.S. does not have an abject stupidity plea." No, the criminal justice system in large part depends on abject stupidity. It is like the best weapon against the criminals ever. Eventually, the law enforcement officers begin to exit, and individuals within the crowd move towards doors. As it's happening, Sullivan can be heard yelling after the officers, "I want you to go home," and then yelling, go, get this ass shit." Sullivan then films as others in the crowd try to break glass in the entry door windows. Shortly thereafter, the video includes footage of victim 1 getting shot as she tries to enter through the window opening. Subsequent to the events at the U.S. Capitol, Sullivan provided interviews to various news outlets, including CNN and ABC's Good Morning America. In the interview, Sullivan described the scene inside the Capitol building. On January 11th, 2021, the FBI officer who's swearing this thing conducted a voluntary interview with Sullivan in his residence. The interview was recorded. In the interview, Sullivan again confirmed he was in the U.S. Capitol, but he denied having a knife. Aww. He doesn't want to confirm that. That's sad. He doesn't want to confirm the knife. He doesn't want to show them the knife. It's like, could you show me the knife that you had? I'm really into knives. Could you show it to me? Damn it. He also showed me the ballistic vest and 2 gas masks he had stated in Washington, D.C. Based on my review of the video described above, the ballistic vest and one of the gas masks that Sullivan showed during the interview, the same can be seen in the activities in the Capitol. By the way, incidentally, just in case you're wondering, having the knife would obviously be nice for the criminal prosecution. That would be helpful to the jury, right? If you said he had a knife and they say, "And here is the knife he had," and he said this was the knife that he used or had on him, that would be great. That would be great for the jury, because that really ties it all together. Now, strictly speaking, you don't need to have it. It would just be nice. So if the U.S. attorney is feeling particularly bold that day, they could still charge him with a 930 violation based on his statements on the film. It's like, we weren't able to recover the knife, but here's him confessing to having the knife. Not quite as good as having the prop for the jury, but, you know, the jury could find him guilty of the 930 violation. Just saying. It's possible. We'll see if the U.S. attorney wants to go that way. Yeah. At various times in his statements to law enforcement, to others inside the U.S. Capitol that recorded the video, and to news outlets, Sullivan has claimed he was in the U.S. Capitol only to document and report. Well, Some of the things that we heard on the video somewhat tends to undercut that assertion. In addition, this FBI official is aware at various times Sullivan has claimed to be a journalist. A very, very gonzo journalist or something. I don't know. He's admitted, however, that he has no press credentials, and the investigation has not revealed any connection between Sullivan and any journalistic organization, which probably isn't the death blow to this. What would be more the death blow to this is the things we discussed before. That stuff. Based on the following, we think there's probable cause to say the following violations. Let's find out what we've got for our contestants so far in this prize game. 231, which makes it a crime to commit or attempt to commit any act to obstruct, impede, or interfere with a law enforcement officer engaged in lawful performance of his duties. An incident to and during the commission of a civil disorder, which delays, obstructs, or adversely affects the performance of any federally protected function. I think Mr. Sullivan is probably guilty of 231. 1752, which makes it a crime to knowingly remain in the Capitol grounds when restricted. Yeah, we're there. And 40 U.S.C. 5104 makes it a crime for an individual group to remain on the floor of the House of Congress or disrupt the House of Congress. Signed, Matt Folger, FBI. So, yeah, this looks like this looks promising. So, yeah, Mr. Sullivan over here claims that he's a journalist and that he's just there to do the journalisming. And then he has a video, and he sends a copy of the video, which is 50 minutes long. And some of the statements he makes on this video seem to somewhat undercut his claim that he's just there merely to observe and capture the day. And just, it's just a journalist, informally or otherwise. Now, the ballistic vest and the gas mask and the statements and the knife, which he said he had on video, which the FBI wouldn't know about otherwise. And all this because the FBI only knows about all this. The FBI only knows about all these things because when they came to his residence and they asked, "Would you like to talk to the FBI?" he said, "Yes, I would. I'd love to talk to the FBI. Please come in. Can I make you some tea?" And the FBI says, "That's okay. We brought our own tea. But we'd still love to talk to you about your adventures in D.C." Yeah, it's just there's a journalist. Okay. And we found this photo of you with a gas mask and ballistic vest. Oh, did you like it? Here's the gas mask. Here's the ballistic vest. Did you take any other pictures? Well, as it happens, I did. I took some video. Can we get a copy? Yes, you can. I'll send you a link from my Google Drive. You gotta love it, man. You gotta love it. Yeah. So we don't see the 930 violation here yet, but that might be coming down the pike, of course, along with other things like, the rioting and the sedition and whatever else we want to throw at them. We're just getting the party started. Yeah, it's going great. It's going super great. Yeah. Hey, Brock, can I see your cool knife? Exactly, yeah. Trump should hire Trump media. Yeah, I mean, everyone is a journalist to some degree. Yeah, that's true. Everyone's a journalist to some degree, but journalists can't do this kind of thing either. Are journalists protected from committing crimes? Nope. Because they're journalists? Nope. That's why I said it's kind of irrelevant to the issue, whether he's a journalist or not. Journalists aren't allowed to commit crimes. That's bad. Yeah, I think this guy is the BLM or whatever supporters, but, it doesn't really matter for our legal analysis. This might be hilarious. And, yeah. Never talk to the police or FBI without an attorney. It's a good tip. It's a good pro tip. If the FBI ever knocks on your door and says, "We have a few questions," just say, "I'd love to answer them, but I am going to have to get an attorney first. So can we meet up at your place later after I get an attorney?" That'd be great. And send them on their way. Spermy the cat says, "I love you, senpai." Well, thank you. I appreciate that very much. Are these people really this dumb? Yes. These people are really this dumb. But I guess you kind of knew that because of the storming the Capitol thing. So not maybe the smartest people in the history of the world. Can the government lie to the court? No. The The government can lie. The police can lie to a suspect. They cannot lie to the court. No. Now, what exactly that means in practice, a lot of people will get, but the FBI is better about this than local police, all things being considered. So we can take it as probably true. And certainly on probable cause. I mean, on a probable cause standard, we're there. We'll have to prove it in court beyond reasonable doubt. But, we have the video, so that should help a lot. This in the previous case made me make an actual bingo card. Yeah, we might need a couple bingo cards at this point. It's like, which charges are we going to face? It's a long, long list. Yeah. Never taught the FBI with a brain. Can these people get a few bucks for being confidential informants for their own crimes? No. Unfortunately, you can't profit off your own crimes. You can't be a confidential informant on yourself. Also, you're not confidential because they know who you are. Yeah. No, yeah. So this is a criminal charge. He's facing multiple years in prison, and there's other charges to come. We've only charged him with the basic civil disorder, entering the grounds, and the disorderly conduct, which is basically what everyone's being charged with so far, right? They're all being charged with entering a restricted building and disorderly conduct in the building. So they're all being charged essentially with trespass and disorderly conduct. Those charges, incidentally, are a year in prison, unless you can prove more, which doesn't seem present. But by themselves, it's a year. So, but the civil disorder, I'm not sure how much it is off the top of my head. But so far, they all seem to be charged with entering the building, trespass, and disorderly conduct in the building, which is exactly what you'd expect. I think you could also charge them with rioting right off the bat, personally, but the U.S. Attorney, not the FBI doesn't seem to be going that way, because I guess, this is enough to get the ball rolling, so why bother? But yeah, we have enough to get the ball rolling. We have enough to start the process, and then we just go from there. How long are you able to add charges? How long can they do that for? And they can definitely do it. It depends on a whole bunch of factors, but these cases are not going anywhere in the near future. But they could bring charges probably up to the time of trial. They have to give notice and everything, but they have some latitude here. They have some latitude. Discovery is a civil concept, not a criminal concept. Well, it's kind of a criminal concept. It just goes one way. I guess discovery is kind of a criminal concept. It's just that in civil cases, discovery goes both ways. In crime, it only goes one way. You wouldn't normally call it discovery, but you could think of it as discovery, I guess. Yeah, the government has to give you everything that they have, basically. Brady material. You might get more clicks if you had what? Brenda Lee Carpenter. Had an interesting thumbnail. Yeah, I do need a thumbnail. I do need a thumbnail that we can use for all these things. So we need to generate a thumbnail for the Capitol riot FBI thing. We do need to find a thumbnail that will work, but yeah, fair point. My defense will be justifiable reliance regarding trespass. Nah, good luck. Strictly speaking, the FBI doesn't add charges. The FBI just arrests. The FBI doesn't do charges. That's the U.S. Attorney. The U.S. Attorney adds charges. These are just the things we'd like to arrest them for. The FBI doesn't add charges. That's the U.S. Attorney's job. So the FBI doesn't bring charges. They just arrest. How much time is all these charges? I'm not sure how much the civil disorder is by itself. I know the other one is a year. Let's see if 18 U.S.C. 231, how much time that is for that violation. 5 years. 5 years. So he's facing 5 years in prison right now. I just finished watching your other video about the FBI. Hello, nice FBI lady. Yeah, it's a great one, isn't it? If you can't profit off your own crimes, could Trump write a book? He hasn't been convicted of anything yet. So there's no problem there. This is also incidentally why O.J. Simpson was able to write a book. Now, as it turned out afterwards, the profits from that book were then turned over to the family because in a separate civil suit, he got found liable for wrongful death. So he wasn't convicted of murder, so he could write the book and he could profit off the book. But then, of course, he was convicted of wrongful death, and the award was so high that the family, Nicole Brown's family and the other one, got the profits from the book. But he was able to write the book and profit off it in the first place because he wasn't convicted. Emily Baker and I do a trail fire you? Maybe. I'd be happy to. That might be fun. It might be fun. It'd be fun for me it might be fun for me to go up against a seasoned prosecutor like Emily to play defense counsel since I'm unseasoned and she's seasoned. That would be a fun challenge. And watch if Emily can kick my ass or whether or not I've got some game after all. That would be fun. So yeah, that'd be fun if we do a mock trial and Emily can play prosecutor, which she should be pretty good at since it was her career, and I'll play defense attorney, and we'll see if I can hold my own. Could be good. It will be a worthy challenge. I'd like to give it a shot. That'd be fun. Did I see just Dershowitz video? Yes. If I had to defend him, what arguments would I make? Well, it would have helped a lot if he had not confessed to the FBI. That'd been great. You know, if we don't have the witness statements against him and the video that he provided himself. So I suppose I'm going to argue that it wasn't actually a voluntary interview. I'll try to throw that at the wall. I mean, I know it's not going to work, but why the hell? So I'll try to say it wasn't a voluntary interview and they should have read a Miranda, so it's not, so they have to throw it out. That won't work, but you know, what else beyond that? Play other parts. I probably get him on the stand and basically try to argue that the U.S. attorney and the FBI are taking the statements out of context, and that he really wasn't violent in the broad context of things, and those statements don't really show the intent that they do. So basically, don't believe your lying ears to the jury, which might work if I'm lucky. Now, it doesn't help that this case is being tried in D.C., so that's a problem. But, you know, something like that. Yeah. Would you have an obligation to try to get him a plea since he did it? No. I have an obligation to bring him any plea offer. And if I think there's a plea offer to be had, I could certainly negotiate for one. Or try to. But ultimately, it's his decision. And I don't have an obligation to try to take him to get a plea. I mean, I have to bring him any plea offer. But if I provide him my legal advice one way or another, I would advise him whether or not to take the plea or not, dependent on where we're on the trial and based on the knowledge that is available. So, you know, would I advise him to take a plea based on what I know right this second? Probably. But if I were actually as a defense attorney and we got into it, it might depend on exactly what's going on in the case that second. You know, based on what discoveries I find, you know, maybe some of the witnesses aren't available, which doesn't really matter because we have the confession, but whatever. You know, maybe it depends. But no, I don't have any particular obligation. It's a professional call. What I think is the best legal option. Yeah. Try to argue when he's there. Entry and participation as a result of being pushed in by the crowd. He got swept up in the mob mentality. Got swept up in the moment. Something like that. I'm not sure that really works much better, but it would go a long way. How do they get a jury for this? The same way they get a jury for everything. They send out jury summons in the mail to the people of DC. You know, and then they do voir dire to find the jury. That's good. Would it actually help that it's in DC? They already believe criminal justice system is systematically racist. I could try to play that angle. Is he black or white? I think he's a white guy though, right? So that's probably not going to help on that angle. Yeah, I don't know. Lessen the harm, voir dire, yeah. Try to voir dire people that have bad experiences with police or bad experiences with law enforcement. Try to get those people on the jury, which will be hard because of course the U.S. attorney is trying to do the exact opposite. But try to get a more favorable panel. Try to say he got swept up in the moment. Try to mitigate any statements he made with other statements he made. So forth and so on. They're going to impeach him though with the notice. I have to keep out the other stuff that is going on in Utah. So I have to file a motion in limine to keep out the government from mentioning anything about the rioting or other charges, because it would be more harmful than helpful. The exact phrase I can't remember right now. It's not probative. So they're trying everyone in DC? Yes, that's where the crime happened. Yeah, that's where the crime happened. That's the proper place for the jury. Yeah. So yeah, where the crime happened is the place for the jury. So all these will be heard in the District Court of DC. Sucks to be them, but that is the proper place for this. That is the place where the crime occurred. So they can look forward to that. Yeah, more prejudicial is what I was looking for. Thank you. Yeah, it's more prejudicial than probative. Thank you. I couldn't quite remember. But yeah, try to argue. So I have to keep all that out. So I have to file a motion in limine to keep all that out. It's more prejudicial than probative. And he probably has to testify. And then I have to think very carefully about his testimony to avoid opening a door, which is going to be really challenging, but try to steer that really carefully and basically tell him things that he can't say because it will open doors and stuff. But, yeah. I might not be able to get him on the stand. Yeah, I might not be able to get him on the stand, which is very harmful to my case. Because if he gets on the stand and he starts saying like how he didn't really have any animus in his heart and he all got swept up into it, I think that opens the door and I think I'm screwed. So I might not be able to get him on the stand, which really sucks. Because I'd really like to be able to get him on the stand. And I might not be able to put him on the stand. So yeah, I'm not sure what witnesses I have on my side. Maybe just make the state prove its case. Maybe really put them to fire, challenge their witnesses. Maybe I don't have any witnesses on my side. I'm not sure I can put them on the stand, and who else would I call? Can Trump pardon them? Yes. DC isn't a state. That's why it's all federal? Well, they could try him in state DC courts, but they can't try them in both. And the federal government has pretty clear jurisdiction over this because it's federal property. So I doubt that anything will be heard by the DC state courts on this. This is all going to be federal because it all happened in a federal building. It's all tied to a federal building and a federal event. So the federal jurisdiction is pretty clear. This is the U.S. attorney all day long. Is this John Sullivan from Utah? It is John Sullivan from Utah, yes. And he's been a naughty, naughty boy. He's done some bad things. And he is, in fact, from Utah, yes. And he's done some bad things. 400 people are watching. Thank you. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you to the 400 people who are watching. That's really, really awesome. Thank you. Isn't DC state court called local court? Yes, it is. It's not a state. That's why every time I do it in quote marks. But I do that for the benefit of our foreign people. I do that for the benefit of people watching from overseas. Because it's easier to think about it as a state court. Now, I know technically it's not. And I know that the people of DC get very snippy about it because they're not a state. So yes, you would call it local court. However, for the benefit of our people watching overseas, it's a little bit easier just to think about it as a state. Because for all practical purposes, it is, except for the fact that they can't charge, except for the fact that they have double jeopardy with the federal government because they're not a state. But yeah, it's a little bit easier. So I purposely use the wrong terminology because because people will more easily understand what we're talking about. If I say local court, people might not really understand what it is. Because if I said like local court about Texas, like think about it. If I said local court in Texas, what do I mean? right? What do I mean? Do I mean some small little courthouse, that's just like for little small matters, or do I mean like major thing, or what exactly do I mean? So the term is not helpful. And yeah, so I just use the term state because it's close enough and it more accurately describes the situation for our foreign people, even if it's not technically accurate, so you have to bear with me. Are there local rules in those courts in federal court? Sure, there would be, of course. What are the chances that any of the backers and speakers at the rally get charged? Probably no one at the rally gets charged. It's hard to see how any of the speakers do anything criminal. If they're financial backers, depends a little bit on what their nature of the financial backing is and what exactly it was for. It depends what their intent was or their knowledge was. So depends a lot on factors, but maybe. Yeah, see. And Techion puts it right. If I said local court in Texas, he'd interpret it as municipal court. Exactly. Right. When technically, if I'm using it in the same sense, I can mean anything. But so the term is a little misleading. So I think calling DC state courts is more helpful for everyone's benefit, even if it's not technically accurate. So that's what I'm going with. 18930 has an exception for knives under 2.5 inches. You're correct. I love how you put it in centimeters, by the way, just to confuse everyone. First of all, 18930 doesn't have an exception for knives under 6.25 centimeters because that's not how the statute's written. I know exactly how the statute's written. It says 2.5 inches. Don't try to confuse people by converting to centimeters. We're going to put statutes and statutes. Okay, but it's the equivalent of 6.25 centimeters. All right, whatever. Yes. But do you know how hard it is to find a knife with a blade of under 2.5 inches? You have to really look to find a knife with a blade of less than 2.5 inches. But yes, you are correct, sir. If his knife was less than 2.5 inches blade length, then you're right. It doesn't violate the statute. Yes. Which is why it'd be helpful to know what it is, but yeah. So, yeah. What are the pro cons of DC getting statehood? Well, it's not clear it's completely constitutional because there's a couple clauses in the Constitution that seem to go against it. The most obvious of one is the one that gives DC votes in the Electoral College because it presupposes that DC exists. And if you make it into a state, DC no longer exists. So you've effectively repealed a constitutional amendment without repealing it, which seems problematic. So that's one that seems problematic. The other thing is that there's other places in the Constitution that talk about the district being the seat of government. And so if there's no more district, then technically speaking, the U.S. government would no longer have a seat of government. Because the way the Constitution is written, it has to be in the district, and there would be no more district. Let me see if I can actually read it in the Constitution, because the way it's phrased, it poses problems. Yeah. So let me see if I can find what I'm talking about and read it to you. Okay. Yeah, so this is one of the congressional powers in Section 8. Is that the only place districts is mentioned? Well, it's at least Article 1, Section 8, which says that one of the powers of Congress, this is in the congressional powers, says one of the congressional powers is to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such a district, not exceeding 10 miles square, as may, by secession of particular states and acceptance of Congress, become the seat of government of the United States. So the district is the seat of government. If we no longer have a district, we technically have no seat of government. We technically have no capital at that point by the constitutional terms. So that's a problem, I guess. We technically have no capital at that point, legally. How fun. What about the overreaching by Congress and how DC spends its own money? DC's had home rule for quite a long time, so it doesn't really depend. Yeah, so they've had home rule. Congress can only overrule them, which happens very rarely. Can you just shrink the district to largely uninhabitable grounds? Yes, you could do that. But that's not the proposal at the moment. The proposal is to turn it all into a state. But yeah, that would get around the problem. DC is only 10 square miles. It used to be 10 square miles. It's less than that now. It used to be 10 square miles when it extended into Virginia. But it's no longer 10 square miles because the Virginia part was retroceded back to Virginia. So it's less than that. I apologize. Not 10 square miles. 10 miles square. 10 miles square, not 10 square miles. 10 miles square. So that's 10 miles by 10 miles, which is what, 100 square miles? So yeah, 10 miles square, not, yeah, sorry if I misstated that. 10 by 10 in a box. But it's less than that now because part of the box is now Virginia. Wasn't established so no state held the government? Well, part of it, yeah. Yeah. All right, I'm going to sign off for now. We may do another edition of T, but I think that's... So DC statehood requires a constitutional amendment? Arguably. And then, so there's that provision in the Constitution which conflicts with it. And then there's another provision, the one that is even more interesting, I think. So that one's interesting. But the other one that is interesting that prevents a problem is... the one that gives DC electoral votes. God damn it, I just want a copy of the Bill of Rights. Or a copy of the Constitution. Can I get a copy of all the amendments? No, that would be too helpful. Yeah, all right. So it's Amendment 22. Amendment 22. Section 1. The district constituting the seat of government of the United States shall appoint in such manner as the Congress may direct a number of electors of President of the United States and blah, blah, blah. So, 22 presupposes that there's a district constituting the seat of government. So you can make a credible argument that by making DC a state, you've effectively repealed Section 22 of the amendment. And also, you've also repealed Section 1, Article 8, Clause 8, at least in part. Or not Clause 8, it would be Clause 12, but whatever. That you've repealed that in part. So there are some constitutional there are some constitutional problems with making DC a state. Now, the idea of just shrinking it down to effectively nothing would technically work. So you could technically make I suppose one square inch, but you could technically make the U.S. Capitol ground, you could make the U.S. Capitol ground the district, which would be the seat of government, which is what that would be. So you could just make all of DC, you could make all of DC a state except for the part that's the U.S. Capitol building, which would be fine. Or you could also include some other things if you want to, but that would work. So that'd technically make the seat of government. And you could include part of the White House too if you wanted to excise that, but that would solve the problem. When DC comes up, maybe you can just explain how it's unique. Yeah, well, DC is a federal district, so it's not a state. DC is under the control of the federal government. DC is managed and controlled by the federal government. They have no representation otherwise. The federal government can do as they like with respect to DC. Now, they passed home rule a long time ago, in the 70s, I think. So, as a practical matter, DC governs its own affairs internally. They have their own mayor. They have their own city council. They pass their own rules and regulations and their own laws. And unless Congress expressly overrules them, they stay in effect. So, they no longer have to ask for permission. Congress can change it if they want to, and Congress could, of course, repeal the Home Rule Act if they wanted to. But, as a practical matter, DC is able to govern itself for a large part. So, yeah, that's what makes it district. It's under the control of the federal government. and its rights extend only as far as the federal government says it does. It's not autonomous like a state. So that's what makes a district. Yeah. That would be done. But what are Puerto Rico and the federal states of Micronesia? Are they different? Are the districts? Are they different? Yeah, they're different. They're different. They're territories in the United States. Although the Federated States of Micronesia are a country, they are a country, but they are part of a free association agreement with the United States. See how deep my law knowledge goes? It goes pretty deep. Yeah. So that's how deep my law knowledge goes. Yeah. So Puerto Rico is a territory of the United States. The Federated States of Micronesia is a country. It's under a free station. It's under a free association agreement with the United States, but it's a country. Micronesia. Right? Please tell me I'm right. Yeah, Federated States of Micronesia is a sovereign state. I knew it. Got it right. Great. Yeah, I'm right. So yeah, they're a country. They're a country. They have, they're completely autonomous, but they have a free association agreement with the United States, which means that if you are so inclined as a U.S. citizen, did you know, as a U.S. citizen, you can go and live and work in Micronesia without a visa? Ooh, how exciting. Yeah, I know. You can go live there and work there. So if you're looking for new employment, you can go live and work in Micronesia with no papers, because free association, baby. Excellent. Yeah, but they're a country. Puerto Rico is a territory. They're kind of similar to DC, sort of. They're in a weird category unto themselves. But yeah, Puerto Rico, Guam, the Northern Marianas Islands, and what's the other one? Virgin Islands? Yes. So those are territories of the United States that are more or less under federal control, and it's complicated. Yeah. Hey, Hanger says it's almost like I went to school for something. I know. It's like, yeah. Yeah. Now, do they have free speech there? Oh, I couldn't speak to their local laws that well. I mean, you'd have to go look that up. They are a sovereign country, so you're to be subject to their laws like any other country. It just so happens, because of the free association thing, you as a U.S. citizen can go live and work there without a visa. But otherwise, you're completely subject to their laws like any other country. Yeah. Is Puerto Rico a protectorate? Sort of. So American Samoa, that's right, too. Is Puerto Rico a protectorate? Yes. Let's go with that. Sure. Yeah. Nah, that's fine. Yeah. Other countries have overseas territories, right? So, I mean, is it like, maybe it's like Gibraltar? Let's say it's like Gibraltar. Is it like Gibraltar for the UK? An overseas territory that technically belongs to the crown and stuff? Is it like Gibraltar for the UK? It might be like Gibraltar for the UK. Maybe that's the right relationship. Although it's considered, I don't know. Whatever. Aren't they colonies? Well, that's one way of putting it, but they're territories of the United States in a more formal sense. And Puerto Rico also gets to play separately in the Olympics for some reason. I don't know. That's up to the International Olympic Committee, but they play separately for some reason. I don't get it. Yeah. So, all that stuff. Yeah. Yeah, so territories don't get a say in the U.S. election. That's true. Yeah, and then it gets even more complicated, because if you're born in a territory, you're a U.S. citizen, unless you're born in American Samoa. Yes. I got it right. I remembered. Excellent. Okay. This is the CGP Cray video of the asterisk upon asterisk upon asterisk. Okay. If you're born in a U.S. territory, you're a citizen of the United States, unless you're born in American Samoa, where you're a national of the United States, but not a citizen of the United States, even though it's a United States territory, because U.S. law, because complicated. Yeah. So if you're born in a U.S. territory other than American Samoa, you're a citizen. So if you're born in Puerto Rico, you're a citizen of the United States. If you're born in American Samoa, you're not a citizen of the United States, you're only a national of the United States. So it's essentially equivalent to having a green card. You're essentially equivalent to being a lawful permanent resident, and you have to apply for citizenship like any other immigrant, even though you're born in the United States. You get this? Even though you're born in the United States, you have to apply for citizenship to immigrate into the United States. You have to emigrate from the United States and immigrate into the United States. Yeah. So that's a thing. Yeah. So yeah. And then if you were born in any of these places, you can't vote for president or anywhere else unless you first live somewhere else. So if at any point you lived in the United States and are only like visiting or like living temporarily, you can vote, but not if you were born there and stayed there. So if you've been in Puerto Rico the whole time, you can't. If at some point you like lived in Florida and now you live in Puerto Rico, you can, because you can still vote in Florida, because you're still domiciled in Florida, because U.S. law. Does this make sense to you? Probably not, but this is where we are. Yeah. So if you're born in Florida and go to Puerto Rico, you can still vote in Florida. If you're born in Puerto Rico and have always been there, you can't vote for you can't vote. But if you live in Florida and then come back to Puerto Rico, you can still vote in Florida. Unless, of course, you were born in American Samoa, in which case, no matter where you live, you can't vote because you're not a citizen, even though you were born in the United States. Yeah. Don't ask questions. Don't ask questions. Don't ask questions. Yeah. So if you're born in Samoa, can you be president of the United States? No, because you're not a natural born citizen. Because you're not a citizen. Because you weren't born in the United States. Even though you're born in the United States, you're not a natural born citizen because you're not a citizen. Because you don't get citizenship for American Samoa. Yeah. No. Why is it giving you a headache? Yeah, because U.S. law. Yeah. So it's like being a green card holder. It's like being a lawful permanent resident. It's basically you have a green card, basically, even though you're born in the United States. Because American Samoa. Because it's a territory, just like Puerto Rico is a territory. But you don't get citizenship, even though you do if you're in Puerto Rico. Because Guam, or not because Samoa. Yeah. No, it's that's all those things that are happening. That's all that stuff. It's good. All right, so we're just going to end the stream before we enter even more complications of asterisks upon asterisks upon asterisks. If you enjoy the stream, if you go to Puerto Rico to not pay income tax, can you still vote? Yes. Sure, of course you can. You're still a citizenship. Still a citizen. So if the U.S. government, so if the U.S. government says you don't have to pay income tax because you live in Puerto Rico, then sure. You're still a citizen. You're just a citizen who doesn't pay income tax. How nice for you. So that's good. Now, will be really good. Now, what I don't know the answer to, which would be fun, is what if you're a U.S. citizen? So you're pushing my legal knowledge where I don't know the answer. So we finally got to parts where I don't know the answer. What if you're born in the United States, or what if you're born in the United States, and you actually decide to domicile in Puerto Rico? So, and then you go work overseas. Do you still keep your non-tax status? I don't know. Is your domicile still Puerto Rico at that point, even if you're living overseas? I don't know. How's that work? Yeah, so if you're a U.S. citizen, if you're born in the mainland, or born in the 50 states in D.C., if you're born in the 50 states in D.C., and you actually go to Puerto Rico and you actually establish domicile there, legal domicile, so you can't now vote back in your home state, and now you go work overseas, do you have to pay income tax or not? I don't know. That's a good one, but that's complications of tax law for another time. I've been Uncivil Law. I'm leaving now. Until later, my friends. Cheers and goodbye.